And in today on the repartee, Doug Padgett and Brett Johnson. Hunter Haas probably out using some fancy tickets that he won somewhere again and didn't tell the rest of us about.
Oh, did you hear what he's actually doing?
No, what is he actually doing?
He's not sure he's going to survive. He's doing that treasure hunt for the thing in St. Paul.
Is that they've kept that going? That
yeah.
They didn't call it off like they've called off so many other things?
No, he is not. He was joking Monday, saying, "I'm not sure if I'm not going to be here Thursday." If he'll survive, so
that
there we
is
go.
Unbelievable. Well, good for you, Hunter Haas. Still getting out there, being hardy. I'm reading some headline right now that Xcel Energy says that there's significant strain on the gas system, and that some buildings and homes don't have natural gas.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out why that was going on in the last hour. We didn't have a good answer.
Well, I don't know either. I have no idea. Maybe there's only so much gas that can go, and maybe it's ball bearings or something.
Oh, how about this? I actually just got an email on it from a listener.
Oh, really?
They
wow.
say
bone up.
That, yeah, they are saying when you have as temperatures go down, so does pressure. You can have you have to peak the gas to increase pressure to distribute the gas. We only have so much peaking capacity. So there you go.
Oh, you got to steal a peak.
I guess. I'm not a scientist at all, so it's beyond what I understand.
Yeah, well, it has something to do with pressure and other things. But just, grueling to think about people having their furnace work, but the gas coming into your house not working. I mean, that just makes you feel like you can't win for losing.
And you hear they have to have their temps down to like 60 in their house. That's what the gas company's recommending. They're saying don't have your temps above 60 or they're going to run out.
Oh, that's unbelievable. Well, I guess at some point, I mean, I just have no idea about how much natural gas is sitting somewhere. I don't even really understand where it comes from. I barely understand, and maybe some callers do. I barely understand how electricity moves from a power plant and then is just, moving through the wires that you're not supposed to touch. I kind of get that because the connectivity stays alive. And I understand how water works because I've got a big water tower outside my house, about a mile away. And I know that water just comes down through those pumps. And then because of pressure out of the the water tower, it pressures into my house. Gas, I actually have no idea how where that's coming from. If there's must be huge containers somewhere holding all this natural gas that then is pushing it out, and maybe that's what's happening. That pushing is having to spread to so many places. I can only imagine, this is probably not at all how it works, but when I have a propane tank like on my grill in the backyard, and I'm going to be doing some grilling. If that tank starts to get low, the pressure, as it gets lower and lower, the pressure is less and less, and there's less coming out. You can sort of watch the flame die. I wonder if that's what's happening there, that they're somehow functionally running out. Randy in Coon Rapids, do you know about this? Are you someone with deep knowledge of natural gas and how it moves from wherever it is into people's homes?
Well, I don't know how much of authority I am, but I do know about the natural gas because I worked on the natural gas system for many years.
Wow.
I do know that we do have a large supply. I forget how many years ago, but they hit a couple of natural gas veins, and they said that we have enough natural gas at our current flow for the next 100 years. We have such a surplus of it, and people might go, well, then why doesn't it cost so much cheaper? And they can't get it too much cheaper because it costs X amount of dollars to get it out of the ground. And at some point, we have so much of it, but they're going to lose money if they start lowering the prices a lot more. That's why people pay what they do pay.
So, Randy, how does it work? It comes out of the ground and then it goes where? It's sitting in some kind of a holding tank somewhere?
Yes. There's in Minnesota, there's Northern Natural Gas, and they're the supplier for a lot of the bigger companies, or pretty much all the gas companies. That's where they get their gas from, whether it's CenterPoint Energy or Xcel, comes from there, and it travels in large transition and distribution lines. And then it starts out like a good way to put it is it's in a big entity, and as it filters down through to like CenterPoint and Xcel, it gets into smaller lines and distributed at a point where it gets to your house. which is in a lot smaller line. And what happens when the weather gets so cold, you have large places like the prisons and some of the bigger buildings that take a large supply of gas. And what it does is it puts such a strain on the system that at the end of the gas lines, like say, we'll just throw Center Point, they're a big one out there. At the end of their gas line, where their farthest reaches out,
yes,
the pressures start to get real low because there's such a demand on the system. So I had heard today that there were places that houses where they didn't have any gas because the pressure just wasn't enough.
Unbelievable.
So that's kind of how, and it's like, okay, what do? You don't have any natural gas to your house. If you have no other form of heat, your house is just going to get cold.
Yeah,
that's
amazing.
the downfall.
Well, Randy, hey,
we don't norm. Oh, go ahead.
Always appreciate your listening and always appreciate your comments, and especially on this one. That's super helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Also, if you're going out today, if you feel like I got to get out, there's some restaurants in the Twin Cities offering you special deals if you're willing to go out. And so, Brett, if you if you need to sneak out tonight, get a little break from the office, if you head over to Morrissey's Irish Pub there on West Lake Street, they have $5 Irish coffees and hot toddies today. The Marcus Theaters are giving out hot chocolate. Like, these are people just tempting someone's well-being with a free hot chocolate. Someone will read this or hear this, and they will head out to the Marcus Theaters, and there are multiple locations all across the cities, like Oakdale and Rosemont and Southbridge Crossing over in Shakopee. They're going to head out just because they want a free hot chocolate. Free hot chocolate, which has been something we've offered in Minnesota since at least I was a child. We're always offering free hot chocolate. Is like I'm always grateful for hot chocolate, right? So fair enough. But really, like free hot chocolate's about as low of an offer as you can get. It's right next to a glass of water with ice in it.
Yeah.
Pretty low quality.
That's not doing much for me. But if anyone goes there for that, we got to get a cut of that commission. We're promoting that.
Hey, we should. Yeah. I wonder if you have to buy a ticket or if you could just walk into the Marcus Theaters and go up to the guest.
I'm not here for a movie. I'm just here for the chocolate.
Yeah. Over at Parajitos in St. Paul, I don't know if I'm saying that right, they are offering a free shot of tequila. So now that's starting to be something worthwhile. And over at Six Smith in Wayzata, they have a free happy hour. Grubhub is offering free delivery from Big Bowl, Wildflower, and Twin City Grill. Now that just seems cruel to ask people who don't want to go out and get any food to use Grubhub, where some delivery person has to get out of her car and haul that stuff from her car up to your front door because it's too cold for you to go out. I thought maybe they would be canceling things like Grubhub on a day like today.
How is it that Grubhub is open and the mail postal service is not?
Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe it's because the Grubhubbers get to just pull right up in your driveway or right out in front of your house and just walk up, and they don't have to like trudge between houses like my poor postal carriers do in my neighborhood. I mean, those people are, I don't know how long they're out between warm spells. But it's 45 minutes down my street. I can see it. I see them walking around, and it's something else. So people free chai over at Hot Indian Foods all around the Twin Cities. So that's good of the people in the business world and the food world to say if you're going to go out anyway, head on out. Now, if you're looking for a freebie tomorrow because you're planning for it and you realize the weather's going to break, Brugger's is offering free bagels tomorrow only to people that head on out, partly because it's the 36th anniversary, and guests get 3 free bagels with any purchase on Thursday before 11 a.m. So sneak out in the morning, head over to Brugger's, make it a full Minnesota kind of day, and it'll make all the sense in the world. Hey, we're going to chat with, here after the break, we're going to chat with Ayaan Dahir. She is a filmmaker and has made a film that I am quite excited about, and am ready to go and see a film and a discussion on Friday. She has helped put this film together, which is called Terror. And it's not a horror film. It's about the war on terror. And the design of the film's logo is the word terror, but it has a parenthesis around the letter T. So as you look at it, what you see is terror and error. And she'll tell us more about the film. But one of the things I find so fascinating about it is that they had a documentary film crew that was invited to go with, I believe it was a Somali man who was asked to become an FBI informant. And we've been talking here on the 4 o'clock hour over the last 9 or 10 months about the way that the Somali community has been misrepresented by the war on terror, and especially the war on Somali peoples here in the Twin Cities. And this film is a part of that conversation. I'm going to say this a couple of times during our my interview with Ayaan Dahir, but the film and the showing of the film and a discussion is happening this Friday. You can find it on Eventbrite. You can find it on Facebook. Brett, maybe we could tag it into the make it available for people on the AM 950 Facebook page.
Oh, for sure. This sounds like such an interesting interview coming up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. So you can find out all the information about this if you want. But it's this Friday, which is February 1st, from 5 until 9 over at 175 Wiley Hall in Minneapolis. Wiley Hall on 19th Avenue in Minneapolis. And it's going to be a great conversation. So get ready for that. She's going to be with us right here after the break here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, at 4 o'clock when it's Minnesota's Progressive Repartee.
Hi, this is Paul Metza from the Wall of Power Radio Hour. You are listening to my buddies Hunter, Doug, and Brett on Minnesota Progressive Repartee.
Hey, welcome back to the Minnesota's Progressive Repartee. And as I was saying before the break, really excited to be talking to Ayaan about this film. The film is called Terror, and really, I think to understand what I hope is the point of the film, you have to see the logo for it, which is the word terror with parentheses around the letter T. And the synopsis of the film, as it's listed on Facebook, is that a counterterrorism informant of the last couple of decades takes on what he swears is going to be his final job for the FBI, and he invites filmmakers to follow his covert efforts to befriend a suspected jihadist without informing his superiors. Ayaan, so this is your film, is that right? Or you've been part of putting the film together?
This is actually the film of director Lyra Cabral, who has put together a fantastic film that really pulls the curtain back on what informancy looks like here in the United States.
And this sounds really fascinating. We've been talking about these kinds of issues and how the war on terror has this very murky and unethical narrative that's built into it in the especially here in Minneapolis, and how it's affected the Somali community. Tell us what we're going to experience if we go to watch the film on Friday night, 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock over in Minneapolis, and then what's going to happen with the event around it.
Yeah. So this is actually the first part of a 3-part film series where we will be exploring surveillance and policing and the war on terror and the way that has affected communities both here and abroad. Mm-hmm. And so the screening is actually the first part of this larger event, but we do have a fantastic panel of community members, and in particular family members of political prisoners and people who have been organizing around CVE, that stands for Countering Violent Extremism, which is a federal program that uses entrapment and securitizes the Muslim community and really alienates the Muslim community. And so we're going to be having this conversation around police entrapment, which is just running rampant, and we're going to talk about individuals being persecuted for their faith, and the police state and surveillance, and how fear and manipulation have been used to trump our civil liberties and privacy. And so it's going to be a really, really good conversation around those points. Have
you seen the film?
I've seen the film like 5 times.
Okay. All right.
It's fascinating. It's really, really good. For me, what I really love about the film is how, a lot of us are, in sort of progressive spaces, or we're in there's like this anti-war movement and all of that. And so we're talking a lot about what, entrapment looks like, how, the FBI uses informants, and we use a lot of this sort of academic language and jargon, which doesn't really, make sense to a lot of people. And so the film really takes you like behind the scenes to show you step by step what it looks like to create, to manufacture these terror cases. And so it's absolutely fascinating.
Now, this is something that comes as a big surprise to an awful lot of people, that that this narrative, that these happenings of the narratives that we hear about disrupting terrorist cells and terrorist plots in the U.S., at times at least, if not all of the time, is not seen as really just the FBI doing good work and stumbling upon a terrorist cell. That sometimes, or most often, or all of the time, depending on your opinion about all of this, the FBI is actually in the business, from the people who are feeling the brunt of these investigations, entrapping people or creating the context or talking young men into becoming jihadists by using informants. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Is that a way you would describe it as well?
Yeah, that's absolutely how I would describe it. And it's not only the FBI that is playing a part. Mm-hmm. It's really also the media that is creating this boogeyman narrative about young Muslim men and women that is contributing to this larger climate on this issue. And so, I mean, the IFPU just reported recently that the media, I think it represents Muslim terrorists like 770% more times than it does white supremacist terrorists in this country, which is actually which are much more responsible for domestic terror here in the States. And so it's really it really does come from all angles. And so with the FBI, you do have to remember they have to justify their own efforts and their own agency. And so they have to they then go ahead and manufacture these cases, not on people that they actually that they have any evidence on. On when it comes to these terror charges, but people that they just simply suspect. And so they go after the mentally ill. They go after, recent converts to Islam. And so they go after really, really vulnerable populations of people to justify this rhetoric and their policies and their programs. And so, yeah.
Now, what strikes a lot of us as difficult is to just believe that the FBI does this sort of thing. For some of us, we hear the president of the United States, who I think is actually caught up in all kinds of really illegal activities and has been investigated by the FBI, saying, look, the FBI just makes stuff up and it's not true, and they're the criminal element. Is that I'm not asking you to say that you're supporting of Donald Trump, but for a lot of people, they get confused when they hear that the FBI behaves in ways that seem so dramatic as to what the film's going to show and what people like you are fairly certain is actually going on.
Yeah, I think we have to be critical of people in power and of agencies and institutions that have power, not just when it benefits us, but also when sometimes it can go against what we want, right? But I think it's really important to understand the history of the institution of the FBI. A lot of what we're seeing around CVE and these sort of covert efforts, locally and nationally are something that's really historic to the FBI as an institution. You have the COINTELPRO of the 60s that targeted the Black community, the left, and really went after and really attempted to sort of delegitimize and cause sort of infighting and really break down movements that were created for the people and by the people and for the benefit of the most vulnerable amongst us. And so once we put it into that context, and once we also understand the prison industrial complex and we think about mass incarceration and the legal system, and I say the legal system purposely here, because I don't believe it's a justice system when most of us do not receive are not on the receiving end of justice when we get into these courts.
Yeah.
I think once we have a rounded historical analysis of the FBI as an institution and the rest of these institutions, I think it's easier to understand the ways that they manipulate and manufacture these cases.
So it's Ayaan Dahir. She's one of the organizers of the event that's going to be happening on Friday. If you can hold on over the break, I'd love to take some callers with you and talk a little bit about what's going to go on at the event. Is that good? Can you hold on with us when we come back?
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
This is AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, and Minnesota's Progressive Repartee at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We're back after the break.
This is Jennifer Ogren, account executive at...
And welcome back to the Repartee. It's a very chilly, full-on cold, big, bright, sunny, crisp day here in Minneapolis. And I'm talking with Ayaan Dahir. She's organizing an event around the 2015 film called Terror, which is a documentary that follows where filmmakers follow an FBI counterterrorism informant and tells the backstory of what goes on with the FBI and how these things happen. And this has great importance to us here in Minneapolis and around Minnesota because the FBI for 2 decades has been heavily engaged in the communities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, and especially the Somali community. So I really appreciate your being here and raising this issue. And it doesn't sit well with a lot of people, frankly. It's one of those the way the FBI behaves and has behaved feels shameful to an awful lot of people. And so a film like this is going to push those buttons, and a lot of people here in Minneapolis, have seen the effects of this kind of behavior from law enforcement, and as you say, all the way across the criminal system about what this means. Are you nervous at all? About the filming, the film screening, and the discussion that's going to be happening on Friday? Do you feel like you have a pretty good idea how it's going to go?
I'm not nervous. I am really hopeful and excited for this Friday, because one of our goals with the many partners and organizations and individuals who work really, really hard to create this event was to create a space for the community to be able to talk about their experience of being surveilled and harassed, and to create a place where we can have these really honest discussions about what it means to be Black and Muslim and Somali in Minneapolis today. And so I'm really excited for this to be a healing process for many people. And so I'm glad to be a part of that.
I was walking through the airport the other day, and I saw one of the many signs that are around the airport that say this very famous phrase, "If you see something, say something." And they kind of have a blurry background of a bunch of people walking around. And it struck me at that time that, for a lot of people, just seeing young Somali men walk through an airport, that's something that they don't know how to respond to. So it makes them nervous and reinforces some bigotries that they have against Somali communities around terrorism, and that's something that they're nervous about. And I wonder how you feel about seeing warnings like that, knowing how much counterterrorism reinforcement there is going on to keep people afraid and to make people be suspicious of one another.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, like, when we talk about this, the case of the 9 young men who were tried, and this is something that a lot of people have said, is that these young men were tried in sort of the court of public opinion before they were ever tried in the legal system. And so I think for a lot of people, it's easy to believe that, these people must be capable of doing, of committing such heinous crimes and so on and so forth, without ever really looking at the evidence, and if the evidence really does stand up. And more oftentimes than not, it doesn't. A lot of these charges are conspiracy, that happen to be conspiracy charges, and essentially what it comes down to is thought crimes. And I guess for some people, it just must be easier to, whether it's internal biases, whether it's the system, but I guess it just must be easier to believe that some people have to be more capable of committing crime than others, when it's completely, untrue. And so, I'm not surprised when I see those types of signs. I wish the FBI would say something to themselves first before going after these communities. So.
Yeah, and it's one of the built-in biases, right? That we're still responding to September 11th in this country, and that really changed at least the intensity in how our counterintelligence agencies and FBI work when they think about certain communities. And there is a shocking number of people who believe that the faith and religion of Islam requires that its adherents be ready to go into terrorist and jihadist acts against whatever country they're living in. That is a bias that exists across the world, and so much so in the United States, that's somehow built into the faith and the cultures that engage with Islam, that it is fundamentally about the destruction of the West, and that any means of terror is not only approved of within the religion, but it's actually encouraged.
It's not hard to believe that people hold those opinions when we think about this. The media conglomerates that espouse that very narrative and are so fundamental in building that narrative about Muslim people across the world.
Yeah.
And when we think about the countless right-wing think tanks and this entire, military-industrial complex that thrives off of people being unable to see other human life as valuable as their own communities. It's really not hard to believe that people have that misconception. It's what they're told every single day when they, turn on the news or when they listen to, the administration. And so it's easy to see how they can think that, but I think it's really important for us to be able to push back on that and to expose the industry, because it really does come down to who is financially gaining off of this narrative, to expose that industry behind it, that is making money off of that is making money off of lives being people being killed.
And who is that? When you follow the money through this system, who is it that's where does the money trail lead?
Yeah, it leads to it leads to corporations, it leads to contractors, it leads to governments. There are a lot of hands at play here that have constructed this, war on terror, and who are materially benefiting off of creating this Muslim boogeyman, and not only benefiting financially, but also being able to violate the rights of American citizens, civil liberties and privacy rights and all of that in the name of security and in the name of fear, really. Yeah. And so, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the event that's going to happen on. It's this Friday. The time is from 5 o'clock until 9 o'clock, so that's a full evening. That's dinner time right through evening, and it's at 175 Wiley Hall, which is at 225 19th Avenue. What is 175 Wiley Hall? What space is that?
Wiley Hall is the building, and then 175 is the room. There are these sort of large auditoriums.
Is this on the University of Minnesota campus, or is this at Augsburg?
Yes, the University of Minnesota campus on the West Bank.
Okay.
Near the library and the Humphrey School of Business.
I see, Humphrey School of Business, right over there. Okay.
Yeah. So and
it's open to anyone. Tickets are free, but there's limited seating, right. So people should reserve themselves a spot if they want to be sure that they get in.
Yeah. We're just about to reach our limit, so we really encourage people to reserve seating as soon as possible. Yes.
I'm glad to hear
that. A lot of people are interested. Yes. So for that evening, we have planned our film screening of the film Terror by director Lyra Cabral, followed by a panel of community members who have been affected by the war on terror, as well as organizers, and an open community forum for people to talk about their experiences with law enforcement and talk about the surveillance and policing and everything that this whole conversation entails.
And how will the evening unfold from 5 o'clock until 9 o'clock? The film is first, the discussion follows?
Yes, the film is first, and then the discussion will follow.
Okay,
Yes.
and it's the film starts right at 5:00, or for some of us that have to run a radio show until 5. How does that? How do you expect
The film, yeah. So tickets are general admission, and so the sooner you get there, the better seat you'll have. And the film will start at 5:30, but the doors will open at 5.
Doors open at 5. Film at 5:30. Now, if someone's not, a university student, obviously this is something you'd still like people to come to. It's not just for college aged people or for professors, right?
Yeah, no, we want everyone who is interested in having this conversation about the war on terror and policing to be present.
Yeah.
So everyone should come.
And if someone's new to that conversation or they haven't thought about this is one of the first times they're hearing about anything like this.
This is a great place to learn and to learn about the work that is being done by the organizers, and to really acclimate yourself to what's been going on in the Twin Cities. Great.
So this can be a starter event for people who are new to this part of the conversation. Well, thanks so much. I think this is really great, and congratulations on putting together such a great event and something that's so important, and for all the other organizing that you do. Is there a way that people can follow up on the other work that you're doing if they can't make it to this event? Are you on the internet somewhere?
Yeah, we are on Facebook, so you can look up the NISA initiative. That's NISA. And you should also follow CARE Minnesota, who's been doing a lot of good work on these issues. And if you look on the Facebook event page, there's a list of other partner organizations who have also been doing tremendous work. And so make sure to follow everyone on Facebook and Twitter.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us, and I will see you on Friday and hope other people join you as well.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks all. Stick with us here on the Repartee. We'll be back here after the break. And if you have some thoughts about this, give us a call, 952-946-6205, and come and see us on Friday. It would be great to have some of the AM 950 listeners over there. And if you are, I don't know, look around, see if we can find one another and say hello. And but stick with us here over the break, and we'll be back on the Minnesota Progressive Repartee.
Hi, this is Candy.
The Minnesota Progressive Repartee.
Brett, is that really your grandmother that's giving us a little bumper push?
Oh yeah. Oh, she listens every day. Yep.
Really? She listens every day. I love it, and I also appreciate that she said repartee. The way you like to say it, the way the Johnsons pronounce repartee.
That's how it's spelled, so that's what I go with.
That's what you do, yeah. It's like tomato. Hey, I was listening, sitting in my home studio here, and it's freezing, and I was thinking, what I need to do? I need to call Snap Construction, have them work on my freezing cold basement. Something's not right. It tells you where all the leaks are in your house. If you've got a drafty house, I'll tell you what, a day when it's 28 below overnight and, the high of 18 below, it'll tell you which windows have a little bit of air coming in, and it's apparently all of mine and all of my walls because our house is cold. Hey, Sue from Minneapolis, you have some thoughts on this war on terror conversation. Thanks so much for calling.
Yeah, I just caught the tail end of that, but I'm glad that somebody is putting forth a film that questions this war on terror. And I myself question the official narrative of what took place on 9/11.
Oh,
I've read some of the materials from architects and engineers for truth, and I just think that being able to have an honest, open conversation about this kind of thing is quite taboo. And I know that I've tried to do this with my friend, and she gets so frightened. But that's one of the tactics I think that is used, is kind of the scare tactic thing, and treating people like they're tinfoil or like they're unpatriotic. But anyway, so I just wanted to say that me personally, I do listen to lectures like, for example, the Toronto hearings that were held. This was quite a while ago, but they do have the different lectures that were given by different people from architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. They have those available on YouTube. And so I've really heard some wonderful lectures on this information, and just a lot of things that the U.S. has been involved in, these ongoing wars. I think a lot of people do kind of wonder about it, but the media that we have out there, and this excludes you guys, because you guys are wonderful, and I love your classy show, this repartee thing.
Ah, you do.
I'm
Thank
chuckling
you,
to
Sue.
myself all the time when I listen to you guys.
Good.
But the mainstream media, it just doesn't, it doesn't go there with regards to questioning this war on terror.
Yeah.
Everybody just falls in line, so that's
Well, thank
why
you, Sue. I hope you can.
Have,
if you can't
I'm
join,
sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah,
please.
well, thank you, Sue. And if you can join us on Friday, I'm going to be over at the event. Please say hi. And if not, this film you can also find on Netflix. So if you're just interested in the film without the discussion and dialogue, and just watch this particular, be a film and then a discussion, you can watch the film on Netflix and other places. Just type in the word terror and put a parentheses around the T, and you'll find it. That's. Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, this whole war on terror, it actually, I was saying to the people who just watched the stream on Facebook during the break, during the commercial break, that even the phrase, the war on terror, to me feels so worn out. It feels so long ago, and so like we can't seriously still be talking about it in these same old tired ways. But we absolutely are, and for a lot of people, it's just become permanent. I mean, if you think about how long ago the events of September 11th happened, 18 years ago nearly. It's incredible. If just take 18 years, after 1948 with the end of the war, and you're into the 60s already. It's been that long. We're just should be well beyond it, but it seems like we've just locked it in, and it's become permanent in our society, and we have to do something about it. So we're going to talk about that on Friday. Not so much here on the show, but we'll talk about it at the event if you can make it over there. And also schedule yourself not just for this Friday, February 1st, but for Saturday, March 2nd at the Blue State Ball, and you can find all that details about the Blue State Ball, where the people from AM 950 get together and have a ball.
Hey, Doug, quick question for you. Just had someone ask, when is the event again on Friday?
Friday.
Those details one more time.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. over on the University of Minnesota campus at 175 Wiley Hall, which is on 19th Avenue, 225 19th Avenue. 5 o'clock until 9 o'clock. The screening apparently is going to be at 5:30 of the film. Then it'll be some kind of a short break, and then a panel discussion with speakers and guests talking about the impacts of this here in the Twin Cities. So 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Friday, February 1st, this coming Friday, over at the University of Minnesota. Good. Hey, Julie, you've got some other things to talk about as well, so thanks for calling.
Yeah, just a little bit lighter topic. I was listening to the radio today, and they came out and said, well, 50 years ago, the Beatles played their last concert on top of their Apple building, and their last get-together. And I was sitting here thinking, wow, 50 years ago, 1969, was the last winter that girls in Minneapolis, at least at certain high schools like Roosevelt and a couple of the suburbs, didn't have to wear a dress to school in the winter with slacks under them. By the time it got to be the winter of 69, 70, girls could just plain wear slacks to school when it was 30 below. So that was a step forward, wasn't it?
Okay, hang on a second, Julie. I had no idea that there was some sort of public school dress code rule for girls.
I mean, you'll hear that all over Minnesota. Girls had to wear dresses to school.
No.
And I wore dresses to school. It was pre-busing. Busing came to Minneapolis in 1975. So you'd run to your elementary school. I remember many times looking down at my red kneecaps. Now, you could wear slacks under your dress, and that's probably what I did when it got to be crazy cold. But, yeah, it was a very strict dress code, very gender-related. And in the hot spring, guys could not wear Bermuda shorts. They had to wear long pants. But I'll tell you, the one exception was what they called game days on Friday. So, the football players, you have your high school games.
Yeah, they wear the jerseys.
And so on Fridays, girls could wear slacks. So if it was 70 degrees in the fall, that was fine. You could wear slacks because you were going to the football game after school. But insane because you couldn't really wear slacks to school in the winter unless you had a dress on top.
And even then, the only reason you get to wear slacks to school is because you're going to go watch something that the boys are doing. I mean, the sexism just...
Yeah, that was. It was also the time when girls were still kind of discouraged from going to college by your counselors, even the girls with straight A's. Yeah. And so that's one thing good about Title IX. It wasn't just for sports. It opened up things so there wasn't such a backward. I will say one thing positive about Minneapolis. I never saw a teacher hit a kid. And there was corporal punishment all around Minnesota and in the upper Midwest.
Julie, you are my kind of optimist. Here's a positive thing. I never saw a teacher hit a kid. That's that, Julie, thank you so much. Thanks for that great call and all of that. That's perfect repartee material. That's the goodness of the people who listen to this station and listen to the show. We appreciate it. You've been listening to the Minnesota Progressive Repartee. This is the end of our program or the departee. You can listen to our show anytime at am950radio.com or wherever you get your podcasts.